Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and it's time for a question. What are the hardest monsters of launch Sunbreak? What has given you the hardest time or made you feel the most pressure? Maybe even cart, maybe even fail. In my opinion, the pressure and challenge is much better in Sunbreak, even if I'm not carting overly often or something like that. I think there's just so many attacks from all of the monsters that need a bit more respect. While many weapons do come with things like counters now, the many monsters have 2 or 3 part attacks or combos that if you counter the first bit or even the second, you'll be hit by the follow-up. So clever decision making and timing is really important. But actually this question was posed to you guys, specifically the Rage Gaming community. We asked what the hardest monsters have been for you via our community tab, and from there we went through the 300 or so comments to gather the most commonly mentioned monsters, which were then put in a poll for you guys to vote on. From that we then had much more votes than the original question and of course our answers. At the end I'll show you guys the full thing, but first let's talk about the top 5 hardest monsters in Sunbreak as decided by you guys. So, the 5th hardest monster you voted for was understandably Shagaru Magala. With 8.39% of the votes, Shagaru, I think, fairly makes it into the top for the hardest monsters. Harnessing the frenzy in a much more deadly way than, say, Gore, Shagaru turns the energy into things like beams of pain. One of the coolest monsters in design generally. I do think Shagaru actually has my favorite intro cinematic out of all of them, where it's just hanging over the prey while they fight to withstand its very presence. It's just cool. Mechanically though, unlike Gore, the antennae are out from the very beginning, along with those wing arms, which makes the fight much more dangerous from the very start. So the transformation style of Gore, well, that's not something so easily managed with Shagaru here, and that really changes the fight. Certainly he does a lot of damage. You can easily take one hit and find yourself in a bad situation after that, but I think it's the size of the attacks, whether it's that cinematic attack where he hangs up in the air and rains the frenzy spots upon you, but it's like powered up from that point where we're seeing many waves of frenzy attacks and blasts coming out after just regular swings. Or the fact that he really starts to use the laser beams, which, yeah, have a much larger area of danger in the fight. But I must say, I do find it a really fun fight, even though I do think Gore looks a bit cooler with the colours and the way the antenna work. But between the two, certainly, Shagaru is the harder version, and fairly voted as one of the harder options in Sunbreak. Now, very closely tied to our 5th is the 4th hardest, which was interestingly Master Rank Allmother. With 9.5% of the votes, Allmother surprised me for this list. You see, with the Master Rank version, we do have that nice improvement to the start. We get to just fight her right away. We don't have to deal with Ibushi at all. But with that, she's also very dangerous from the beginning with her many shockwaves and huge area attacks. But I actually think I realized maybe why I don't see her in the way others do is because I play dual blades, which is, yeah, mostly aerial these days. So not only are you able to reach up and hit her weak spots consistently, which means you bring her down often, controlling the fight, but it's how insanely mobile dual blades just are. The many huge dangerous attacks that happen in front of her don't really matter as I'm flying around to her side or even behind her to avoid them while dealing damage. So I reckon I might have a bit of a warped opinion on the fight compared to someone who's kind of stuck in front of her a bit more, where a single counter won't save you from the many ticks of damage. Most of her attacks actually do. And when you do get hit, it's terrible because you're thrown back at sort of a medium range. Now you're in a really bad spot for most of her attacks that are coming, and you probably got that Thunderblight beginning, which can lead to that horrible stun. And also everything she does a huge chunk of damage. And as a monster, she also has loads of different super attacks which have huge areas of effect. You need careful timing and positioning just to avoid them. So yeah, I guess I can see how she's a higher monster on this list. I guess I just happen to main a weapon that deals with her pretty well. Pulling ahead in our votes then, our 3rd hardest monster makes a lot of sense for me. Our very furious Rajang came 3rd with 11.93% of the votes. Furious Rajang is awesome. I really like this fight. Something about the faster nature of it, the flashy attacks this furious version has, it just makes me really enjoy it. And that's a good thing too, because I had to beat him with all 5 weapons in the arena for a video. Even though this Rajang is always powered up compared to the regular version, it still has those 2 stages of powering up further to do. And when the arms turn red and you're bouncing off them, that is an absolute nightmare to deal with. As a monster, he's much more bouncy. This furious Rajang can corkscrew himself around multiple times, break his own combos to like feint and trick you to suddenly turn into a body slam or a thunder wave. But speaking of those waves, I really like them. Those explosive lines on the ground now, I don't know why I like them so much. Maybe it's because you're able to very cleverly step in between them depending on the pattern and then charge up an attack. It just feels awesome. But he does feel a lot stronger, down to the fact that his cheeky rock throw, he can actually pick it up and move move it and then pinpoint accurate throw it right at you. So yeah, I much prefer Furious to regular to actually fight. Something about that faster pace just has me paying more attention and makes me enjoy it more. I always love challenging fights that kind of demand that sort of thing. I certainly found that with Furious. So him being up here is 100% correct. But now, things get interesting, because I thought this monster would actually be first and that most would vote for it. As it turns out though, you guys voted Scorned Magnamalo as the second hardest monster with 15.87% of the votes. Now, I don't know why exactly, but a monster having lost an eye definitely makes it seem more dangerous. Maybe though it's also the new massive blaze, the growing out with those deep purpley pink effects. It felt like a perfect cap off to original Sunbreak, taking the Rise flagship and making it into something even more monstrous and throwing at you as a sort of final challenge before we get our first update. Magnamalo, I think, is one of my favorite monsters, probably because I'm also a huge fan of Zinogre. So I was really happy to see them in that cinematic fighting each other. They are very similar, but to see an enhanced version of Magnamalo, I'm really happy. My first hunt against him, I was loving it. Everything was going well. I was maximizing my endemics, my wyvern rides, and then boom, just carted out of nowhere. First time seeing one of his new attacks, it just gets me. And that actually happened twice, so I barely made it through the first hunt, my first try. So therefore, throughout the entire fight, because of that, even when I was in control, even if I felt comfortable, I still felt that insane pressure, because yeah, at any time a small mistake would cause a car. But it feels fair because those deadly attacks, they should destroy you. His big weapons, those dual blades that he himself has, the triple pointed tail or the new spine and the spikes on his back, and obviously that new red effect. So he's got his purple explosions, but now those new red ones, which are even more deadly and kind of combo off your classic combos to throw off your normal timings. One of those new attacks that got me was his shockwave attack, much like the one Malzeno throws at you actually. I wonder if he learned it from him. So for me, it felt like there was enough familiar about this fight, but with enough that also shifts and changes that throws off your usual expectations. And obviously the damage is so high that you're going to be punished if you make a proper mistake. It's also one of the most satisfying monsters to break the parts of. I managed to break both arms and face at the same time. And that felt incredible. So yes, I loved Scorned Magnamalo. And for me, I would make this my top pick for hardest monster in Sunbreak. But of course, it isn't up to me. It was your vote. So finally, who is the hardest monster in your opinion? With 21.33% of the votes total, Master Rank Crimson Glow Valstrax took the top spot. While I found Scorn to be the most pressure, I certainly won't deny that Master Rank Valstrax here is also worthy of the top spot. Even though it's just the simple things like the extra burst of the charge beam, which suddenly turns to blast out again, or maybe the slam combos, which now have a triple follow-up when we're used to double. These little things like that, they make the Master Rank Valstrax so deadly. The worst for me, I really struggle with, is when he leaps up into the air for a moment and can do a bunch of different things when he's hanging there. Whether it's stabbing, spinning, slamming, or like a sudden dash. It feels very hard to predict, and that makes it very scary when you consider how much damage he's going to do if he actually hits you. Much like the others on this list, once you take that first hit and you're laying on the ground, what's coming next might finish you before you can even react. But I still find this fight very fun, even though it's very tense and horrible. Maybe that's because when you can identify the combos and what's actually coming, the timing and pace of it can feel pretty great. Landing the right timing on the dodge or the counters multiple times in a row, dodging that final hit, and then you get to go in on a long recovery window. Many of the super dangerous moves of Valstrax here have that nice period you can return fire with your own big hits, as long as you have just avoided that big, often harder to predict combo that just came before. So while dangerous and varied, I found Master Rank Valstrax fair and fun, and certainly worthy of the top spot for this list. But why don't we talk about the other monsters mentioned in this poll and see how they did. A shout out from me to the unexpected afflicted Aurora Somnicanth, which was brought up a fair amount, and also very understandable afflicted Gosharag, because he's very dangerous. I do wonder though, if we did this list for just afflicted right now, who would be the hardest afflicted overall? But here are the final results to take a look at. As you can see, a few people mentioned Ibushi and the new Master Rank Chameleos, which can be deadly for sure. I also think if it wasn't for the demo, Malzeno would have rated higher on this list. Demo versions are always insane. You got that 15-minute timer to win while using bad armor, worse weapons, less healing. The launch versions by comparison feel so much easier. But I do agree actually that Serios and Espinas, they should should be on here as well. They were scary monsters to fight to begin with, and though this list is missing on many afflicted, quite a few people were mentioning low-level afflicted for being really hard to deal with, interestingly. For now, however, that is the list in the video. I'm definitely going to be interested to see what people make of this poll and the ordering of it. For future videos of this nature, be sure to be aware of our community tab on the channel, get involved, and make your own votes. Otherwise though, thank you very much for watching. I've been Hollow, you've been you. We'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.